Hey guys, how's it going? So today I am going to do a relatively quick review after playing about 10 hours, almost a dozen hours of uh, Eternal Strands. Now, first off, the developers were nice enough to send me a key about a week and a half in advance of the game releasing. So I, over the past week and a half, have been able to play the game a bit. I've also streamed about maybe 5 hours or so of the game on my channel before the actual release, and the review embargo lifts today, so today I am actually able to share my opinion with you guys and tell you guys what I think about the game. So Eternal Strands is a Dark Souls type game, like a Souls-like game. It's open world and it is $40. That's basically a complete summation of the game. The game is a Dark Souls-like game. I wouldn't call it a Dark Souls clone, because that's a little bit derogatory. This game does more than enough to separate itself from Dark Souls or any of the other Souls-like games. It absolutely does enough to separate itself from those games. So I definitely wouldn't call it a clone, but it is still a Souls-like game because the game uses a very similar death system to where once you die, all of the creatures in the entire zone respawns exactly the same as in Dark Souls. All of the chests and breakable stuff respawn when you die. You also lose loot when you die. The game doesn't have experience or anything like that, so you don't lose experience, but you do lose loot. So the game is very much the same as Dark Souls in that aspect. It's also, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of combat. It's also very much like Dark Souls in that blocking and dodging and tactical engagements is pretty important when it comes to the game. So you're supposed to dodge, even though I suck at dodging, and you can also block, even though I don't have a shield right now. You can switch to your shield very quickly, so it's very easy to switch between the different weapons. So you have a bow in the game, which you can like shoot like this. Rapid fire, this is one thing. Rapid fire in the game does basically nothing. So like they allow you to do rapid fire like this. They allow you to do rapid fire, but it does basically no damage at all. Like the damage of rapid fire is absolutely pathetic. So if I rapid fire this guy, if I can just rapid fire him actually accurately, so you can see 0 damage. So rapid fire does 0 damage. So you actually have to aim like that. Okay, come on. Why isn't it even hitting him? So like that. You have to actually aim and shoot pretty accurately. But the bow is pretty useless, honestly. The two-hander is much better. And then the shield and sword is actually even better than the two-hander. So the bow is really useless, and I hate the fact that you can't rapid fire. Rapid fire arrows literally do 0 damage. So that's one thing that I think is not good. It's not a good way. It makes the bow very, very weak, in my opinion. So another thing about bad game balancing with regards to the weapons is that the two-hander does about double damage. I think I can't show you guys right now, but the two-hander, oh wait, there it is. So 122 weapon damage, and then with the sword and shield it is 70, so almost half damage. So you would expect the sword and shield to do about half the damage of the two-hander, correct? So let's test that quickly. Let's find someone who we can actually attack. Because the game is like Dark Souls, there are not a lot of enemies around. Like the enemies are very sparsely populated because every engagement could mean your death, basically. Just like in Dark Souls, even though you really have to suck in order to die in a single encounter. So you see 80 damage with a two-hander. Then we swap to the sword and the shield, and the damage, I think that was a 35. Let's just double check quickly. So that was a charge attack. So 80 damage. 80 damage. So we do 80 damage to those. Now, where's another one? Basically, I'm trying to show you guys that the sword and shield attacks way faster. Like, look at this. Look how fast the sword and shield attacks. It attacks very fast, and then the two-hander attacks incredibly slowly. Like, it really attacks way slower. And you honestly can kill an enemy way faster with the sword and the shield than you can with a two-hander. You would think that you would do a lot more damage with a two-hander, but actually the two-hander is significantly weaker. It deals significantly less damage per second than the sword and the shield, simply because the sword and the shield can attack like more than twice as fast as the two-hander can. So honestly, I think the developers did a bad job with balancing. Obviously the bow, as I already showed, the bow is absolutely pathetic because you have to aim like this and release, aim like this and release, and then you hit the enemy for 33 damage, which is pathetic. Whereas with the two-handed you can do like 100 damage per hit, and with the sword and shield you can do about 60 damage per hit, but you can hit way faster. So honestly, in my opinion, the bow is absolutely pathetic, and the two-hander is better, but not as good as the sword and shield. And honestly, it shouldn't be like that. All of the weapons should be more or less the same in regards to damage and usability in combat, but unfortunately in this game that is not at all the case. So honestly, in my opinion, you have to play with the sword and the shield. You can't really play with a bow. You can't really play with a two-hander. The sword and the shield just does more damage, and on top of that, you can also block with the sword and the shield. Whereas with the two-hander, you can't do that. You can like do a parry type thing, I think. If you just, you can do like a shove. So if the enemy attacks you, you can do a shove. But basically the sword and the shield is just so much better because you can block projectiles as well as parrying and blocking, and it does the most damage. So honestly, like I say, the developers did a bad job with the balancing. So that's not good. Like an open world Dark Souls type game, you're going to be doing a lot of combat. In fact, like 80% of the game is going to be combat, and the combat, in my opinion, simply isn't balanced well. And unless you are able to resign yourself to only fighting with the sword and the shield through the entire game, you're not going to have a good experience. Otherwise, if you use the bow or if you use a two-hander, you're not going to have a good experience because it is not optimal. So definitely, I really wish the weapon sets were balanced way better. You also have powers that you can use during combat. So the powers are really nice. You can freeze an enemy. So I do like the powers in the game. So like this guy, you can freeze him and then you can attack him while he is frozen, like that. So that's really nice. I like the powers in the game. You can just freeze an enemy like that and the enemy can't do anything. So the game has various powers like that. You can also swap. So if we do this, for instance, then you can throw stuff like that. Okay, that did 0 damage for some reason. That did 150 damage. So you see, you can throw stuff around as well. Even though, in my opinion, the sword and the shield does way better damage, way faster. You're not as limited, because with this, while you have this thing, while you're carrying this thing, you're slower, so you're walking slower, and you can't block either. So honestly, this is not very good. The ice is much better, where you can just freeze an enemy. You can also do pretty cool stuff like create bridges. So you can create a bridge like this and then you can walk on top of the bridge. So the game has some really, really cool ideas. Like I said, I definitely would not call this game a Souls clone, like a Dark Souls clone, because the game absolutely does enough to differentiate itself from Dark Souls and other Souls-like games. But as I already said, the combat is not good. Well, the combat is good if you constantly use the sword and the shield. Otherwise, if you want to use a bow, or if you want to use a two-hander, the combat is simply not good. You also have a fire ability, which I don't have currently, but you get various different abilities. You get a fire ability, so you can ignite enemies, and you collect different abilities throughout the game, in addition to the psychic ability and the ice ability and stuff like that. So combat honestly is nice. I like the combat. I just don't like the fact that if you don't use the sword and the shield, you are playing the game suboptimally. I really don't like that. There's a couple of other stupid things that really irritate me, such as when you sprint, it consumes stamina. So even when you are not in combat, it still consumes stamina. And like, why would the developers do that? Why would the developers slow down your exploration? Why would they make it so that while you are out exploring the world, you have to stand still and wait for your stamina to regenerate every now and then? It's just really not good. It makes the game overly grueling, overly tedious, in my opinion. Honestly, I don't care if the stamina drains if you are sprinting during combat. I don't mind that, but sprinting outside of combat should not make your stamina drain. That is simply not good. Also, your stamina is drained when you are harvesting resources. So the game has resource harvesting, and your stamina is drained while you are harvesting resources. That is another thing that I don't think is good. Like, why would you slow down the speed at which you allow the player to harvest resources? Because every now and then you're going to have to stop attacking because you have run out of stamina. So you want to farm resources, but you can't farm resources efficiently because you have to wait for your stamina to regenerate every now and then. So I don't like the fact that stamina is consumed outside of combat. With sprinting and with attacking, stamina should not be consumed, in my opinion, outside of combat. Another thing is that you can't loot items or interact with items when attacking. So when you're attacking, you can't loot items. So you can't loot items at all. Like there, I just pressed E a bunch of times while attacking. Like while you attack, you cannot loot at all. I'm literally pressing E constantly now, and I cannot loot that item, despite having pressed E about 20 times there. So you cannot loot items or interact with anything while attacking. That's really, really stupid. Another thing that I don't like is the fact that loot isn't auto pickup. So, like, if you destroy something like this, for instance, that, in my opinion, should go directly into your inventory, because sometimes, especially when breaking over crates, like those crates over there, when you break open the crates, like 5 or 6 or 7 things will pop out of the crates, and you have to run around and pick up each of the things, and you have to press your action button for each and every one of the different things. And that is simply, once again, tedious and grueling and just completely unnecessary, in my opinion. The items should go into your inventory automatically, in my opinion. Another bad thing is that loot disappears. So the game has a really, really terrible loot system, and this is the biggest issue with the game. Honestly, I have criticized the stamina system, I have criticized the combat system. All of those things I can live with. I don't have a massive issue with that. But the inventory system in the game is the main reason. It is the singular biggest reason why I cannot recommend this game. The inventory system is terrible. The fact that the developers have limited your inventory space to only 18 spaces. Like, you actually start with less. So I have already upgraded my inventory twice, I think. So you start the game with much less spaces, and then at the maximum, you get 18 inventory spaces. And 18 inventory spaces is not nearly enough. The stuff does stack, so it does stack, but 18 is not nearly enough. So you are going to constantly have to drop loot on the ground. You're constantly going to have to decide, do I want to throw the soft wood on the ground in order to pick up a different resource? And that is the singular biggest reason why I cannot recommend the game. I despise it when a developer willfully and on purpose makes the player lose progression or lose loot. I absolutely despise it, and unfortunately these developers have chosen to arbitrarily limit the size of your inventory. So you are constantly having to open up your inventory and decide, okay, I really want to pick up this thing over here, but I don't have enough space. So I'm gonna have to throw down this thing, for instance. Then you press F, you throw it down, and then you can pick that thing up. It's a constant battle of unnecessary inventory management. And like I say, it is the singular biggest reason why I cannot recommend this game. I would have recommended the game if the inventory was bigger. But the fact that throughout your entire gameplay for the next 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours, you are constantly going to have to open up your inventory, decide which resources to throw on the ground, then throw those resources on the ground just so that you can pick up a different resource. It is so infuriating, and so it makes the player feel bad having just defeated a monster, and the monster drops a new resource which you didn't previously have, and now you have to choose which resources you're gonna throw on the ground just to pick up a new resource. Like, there are probably 50 different resources in the game, and yet you only have space for 18 at a time. So you are going to have to constantly choose which ones to throw on the ground, and it just really feels bad. It really feels bad throwing resources away, and then on top of having to throw them away, they also disappear. So if you die, or if you go back to the base, if you use the gate over there in order to teleport back to the base, all of the resources resets and the entire zone resets. All of the monsters respawns and all of the resources respawns. So I wouldn't have had an issue if the resources didn't disappear. Like if you went back to the base and you came back and the resources were still on the ground, that wouldn't have been so bad. But the fact that the resources disappear is just honestly the developers twisting the knife on the player and unnecessarily causing them to suffer losses and lose resources. And that is simply something that I cannot abide by. I do not like it when a developer willfully punishes and makes the player lose resources unnecessarily. It is the biggest reason why I cannot recommend this game. If you've watched any of my past 5 or so hours of me playing the game on my channel, you will know how many resources I have been forced to drop on the ground. Literally, your inventory fills up so quickly, and then you have to throw resources on the ground, and there is no way for you to go deposit those resources and come back and collect these resources. And I just absolutely hate that kind of design in a game. So that's the biggest issue that I have with the game. The fact that you're constantly losing resources. Constantly, you're just losing resources. Another thing about the game that I don't like is the fact that there's no levels or experience. The game has no levels or experience. So if you think about a game like Dark Souls, there is levels and experience, and you can grind, you can gain levels, you can spend your attribute points and your skill points anywhere you want. This game, unfortunately, doesn't have any levels or experience points at all. So the only way for you to gain power is through equipment. And equipment is not easy to come by. So normally, in a game like Dark Souls, if you are a player who's not very good at these type of games and you're perhaps stuck at a boss, because the game does have boss fights, like the dragon that flies around here, and there's also another really big giant which I have fought on my channel. It's in, I think, the second playthrough that I did, the second play session that I did. I fought and killed a massive a boss. You can actually see him over here. So over there, that boss over there, I did fight and kill that boss. The video is on my channel. So there are boss fights, and in a game like Dark Souls, for instance, or Elden Ring, if you are a player who can't kill the boss, then at least you can take a step back. You can go kill a bunch of different monsters. You can gain experience. You can become more powerful. You can grind more levels, gain more strength, gain more ability, gain more stamina, all of those kinds of things. In this game, you can't do that. In this game, I currently have the most powerful gear possible. I have upgraded all of my armor, and I've upgraded my weapon as well to be the most powerful that I can currently get it to. So now I am at a point where if I fight any boss or any opponent and I am unable to beat that opponent for whatever reason, due to me not being able to dodge quick enough or fight hard enough or whatever, which obviously does happen in a Dark Souls like game, then I'm screwed. There is simply no way for me to beat that boss, because you can't go and grind levels, you can't go and gain more power, because all of your power comes from your gear. So that's really bad in my opinion. So if you look over here, you can upgrade your gear by spending these resources over here. And then you can also you can upgrade like all of your gear like this. You can see, okay, this one I can't upgrade because I need a forge upgrade, and I can't get a forge upgrade until I progress the story. So I literally cannot make my two-handed weapon any more powerful. That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say that if you reach a boss and you can't defeat the boss, and you already have the strongest gear that you can get up until that point, then you're screwed. You're not going to be able to progress the game at all, because it is impossible for you to gain any more power, because the game doesn't have levels and the game doesn't have experience or skills or anything like that that you can improve. So that's a big problem for people who are going to get stuck in this game. And I am certain that there are people who are going to get stuck in this game on one of the bosses, and then they're simply screwed. There is no way for you to gain any power at all in this game apart from the gear. So if you've upgraded your gear to the maximum level, as I already have, as you can see over here, and I can't beat the boss, then I'm screwed. It's basically you've spent $40 on the game, and you cannot progress past that point, because the boss is simply going to beat you each and every time unless you get lucky or you get more skillful. You're not going to be able to make your character any more powerful. So at that point, it's going to be $40 down the drain. So I don't like that at all. So it's not a good game design choice that the developers did in not allowing or not implementing any experience or levels in the game whatsoever. So that's not good at all. Another thing, the voice acting is good. That's actually one thing that I do like about the game. The voice acting is actually quite good. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of seconds to listen to the voice acting. I actually like the voice acting. The voice acting is actually above average. It is certainly above average.
Solar, any thoughts on how I might go about withstanding cold temperatures while I search for the key swatch?
With the right materials, any design for armor could give you some resistance to frost magic and cold temperatures.
What kind of materials could I bring you?
A Kala hide would do the trick for one.
There are plenty of those prowling in the outskirts. Thanks for the insight.
So as you can hear, the voice acting is actually very good.
So, we're hunting a rogue key swatch in a frozen village. When dealing with temperature, your magic can directly counteract it.
I'm guessing we fight frost with flame?
Just so. Like building a fire on a cold night, except much faster. And the night has teeth and talons.
Unfortunately, I don't have a flame strand yet.
It's a tall order, but defeating a drake would allow us to weave a strand of its power.
Drakes and I are due for a reckoning anyway.
Spoken like a true point.
So a point in the lore is me. I'm the point. I'm not gonna explain the lore to you, but I am a point. That is why he said, spoken like a true point. The point is basically the captain of the group, and this is the entire group of people here in the camp, basically. So I actually like the upgrade system, the way that they did the upgrading. So if you select any of your different weapons, you can upgrade them. So let's take the two-hander, for instance. You click on the two-hander, and then you can spend various different resources to increase your power of your weapons or of your armor. You can also upgrade your armor or reforge. They actually call it reforging. So you can reforge your armor and your gear. The color changing is nice. I actually like that, but the main reason to reforge your gear, as you can see over here, is the fact that it changes the stats of the item. So that is how you make your gear more powerful. I don't have enough of these resources yet, even though it's just a small increase that you would gain. So I actually really like the way that um, upgrading your gear is done. So on my helmet, for instance, if I got these blue resources over here, you can see that it changes the color, but more importantly, it changes the stat of your item. And then you can do that for each of the different resources. So this one uses 1 steel, 2 leather, and another steel. So you can basically add 2 leathers and 2 metals to your armor. And then obviously, like I already showed you, the weapon as well. You can upgrade the weapon as well. So I really like the gear upgrading and the gear reforging system. It's really nice, and it's also cool that the color of your armor actually changes. You can see it changes the color depending on what material you choose to put on, to infuse into the item. So I really like that aspect. But as I already said, this is not enough. You can have the best gear in the game, upgraded the most powerful that you can possibly get it, and if you are not able to kill a boss because you don't have enough skill or whatever, or the boss is too powerful, it's simply a badly designed boss or whatever by the developers, then there is absolutely no way for you to defeat that boss because you cannot gain any more power in the game at all. So I like the upgrading system a lot, but it is still not enough. It's not enough to make the power of you as a character grow exponentially. You basically are going to hit a brick wall at some point once you've upgraded your gear to the maximum that you currently can get it, and then you have to wait until you unlock a new forge. And currently, I have already unlocked the highest level of forge that I can, so you go over here, and then you can upgrade the forge over here. But as you can see here, I can't take my forge from level 2 to level 3 because I need to progress in the story, because I need to defeat a boss. But if I can't defeat the boss, if I am literally unable to defeat the boss due to me not having enough skill or whatever, then I'm screwed. Then it's basically $40 down the drain. And that is unfortunately just really bad game design. It's not like in Dark Souls or Elden Ring or any of those games where you can grind levels and you can
Audio.
become
It's by the way.
progressively more powerful. This game does not allow you to do that at all, and that is a big negative for a lot of players. So I like the crafting system, I like the upgrade system, but it falls flat on its face if you cannot progressively gain more power. And unfortunately, that is exactly what happens in this game. So another issue with the game is the fact that when you die, you lose your loot. You lose almost all of your loot. The game has a system where you lose out of your entire inventory, you lose all of your items except like 4 items. You can keep 4 items. So you have to choose out of your entire inventory 4 items to keep, and you lose all of the other items. So basically, for all intents and purposes, when you die, you lose 90% of your loot, essentially. And there is no way to turn that off. So, in a lot of games, there will be varying difficulties, and you will be able to turn off the hardcore loot dropping. And in this game, there is nothing like that. They do not allow you to customize the loot dropping. So, that once again is very bad for new players and novice players. Novice players will find this game extremely punishing because when you die, you lose all of your loot. And the only way for you to bank your loot, to get your loot back to the base, is to come back to the base. There is no other way. So you have to run past all of the monsters and bring your loot back to the base. So it's very punishing. Another bad thing is the fact that you can't save anywhere. So when you're out in the world, you can't save. There's only certain points in the game where you can save, or you can save in the camp as well. You can always save in the camp. But once you're out far into the world, far into the open world of a zone, you cannot save anywhere you want. So that, once again, is really quite punishing. And then we come to the bad graphics. The game, you might have noticed, like on the shadows over here, for instance, I have been forced to turn down the scaling of the game to 1080p because the graphics of the game is so bad. Like, the graphic optimization of the game is really quite bad. I have an RTX 3080 combined with a Ryzen 5 5700 X3D. So it's a 5700 X3D CPU, which is a very good CPU, combined with a RTX 3080, which is also a very good GPU, and yet my computer is not able to run this game at 2K resolution natively. So my computer cannot run the game at 2K native resolution on 60 FPS. If you've watched any of my playthroughs, you will see that there was a massive amount of stuttering when I had the game on 60 FPS at 2K resolution. And now I'm running the game at 1080p. I'm literally running the game at 1080p, and the game is now able to run at 60 FPS. But as soon as I put it up to like 2K resolution, like this is 2K resolution, the game starts to not be able to run at 60 FPS. So the game, unfortunately, is not very well optimized. I'm running it on not even high. A lot of the stuff is on low, like you see here, low, low, medium, 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 medium. Like, honestly, with all of these settings, my computer is able to run the game at 60 FPS, but if I increase the screen percentage to 2K resolution, like this is 2K resolution, my computer starts having issues. My computer starts not being able to run the game at 60 FPS. So the optimization of the game is really not good. You're supposed to be able to run basically any game on high graphics at 2K resolution at 60 FPS with my setup. I mean, my computer can run Cyberpunk 2077, it can run Witcher 3, it can run Far Cry 6, all of them at high quality at 2K resolution at 60 FPS with no problem. And yet, my computer can't run this game at 2K resolution on medium. It can't even run the game at medium at 60 FPS on 2K resolution native. So the graphics look nice and colorful and everything like that, but the game is very, very demanding. It is even more demanding than Cyberpunk 2077 or Far Cry 6 or Witcher 3. So the developers really have not done a good job with the graphical optimization of the game. The game looks good, but the game does not perform nearly as well as what you would expect. And another issue is small little quality of life things, like the fact that there's no 30 FPS. That you literally only have two choices, which is uncapped FPS or 60 FPS. That's all, literally. There are no other options whatsoever. Even if I turn off VSync, There are no other options whatsoever. So the developers haven't even taken the time or the effort to implement a 30 FPS option, 120 FPS option, 144 FPS option, nothing like that. It's literally just 60 FPS and uncapped, and that is really not good. So, yeah, in addition to the game not running anywhere nearly as good as it should, you can't even run the game at 30 FPS. To make the game run at a lower frame rate, but at least then you would be able to run the game at a higher screen resolution. So the game doesn't even allow you to do that. So, honestly, guys, that pretty much summarizes my entire opinion of the game. I like the combat, I like the voice acting, the graphics is nice, I like the upgrading system of the game. But honestly, that is where it ends. I don't like the stamina being consumed outside of combat. The fact that you can't loot while attacking is terrible. The fact that loot isn't automatically picked up when you destroy something is terrible. The fact that loot disappears is really bad. The game doesn't have experience or levels, so if you are an inexperienced player or if you can't defeat a boss, then you are screwed. There is no way for your character to become more powerful, to gain more power in order to progress further. So that is a massive issue with the progression for novice players. Novice players and players who are not accustomed to difficult games like this will not be able to progress at all. It will literally be $40 down the drain because they won't even be able to defeat the very first boss of the game. Never mind the second boss of the game. So that's really bad. They don't allow you to select 30 FPS or 120 FPS or 144 FPS, nothing like that. The game runs really badly, the game performs really badly. Honestly, there are just way more bad stuff in the game than good stuff in the game. There are some good stuff, but the bad stuff far outweighs the good stuff, which is why I cannot recommend the game. If the developers wanted to improve the game, to make the game much better, they should make the inventory limitless. They must allow the player to decide whether they lose loot on death or not, instead of just losing all of your loot and not having any choice. They must allow you to choose hardcore or not hardcore, because the fact that they don't allow you to not choose hardcore is really, really bad. And they must improve the performance. The performance of the game is really, really bad. If they do all of that stuff, which honestly they should be able to do relatively easily, then I could have recommended the game. And then on top of that, if they implemented a attribute system or an experience system or a leveling system, then I really would have been able to recommend the game. But unfortunately, like I say, none of those things are implemented. So unfortunately, I cannot recommend that you spend $40 on this game. There are far better games than this game out there, like Sekiro, Dark Souls, Elden Ring. All of those games you will be able to get for $40 or less, and they are simply far superior games at the end of the day. So yeah, guys, it's a Diablo like, not a Diablo like, Dark Souls like game. It does enough to separate itself from Dark Souls to not be called a Dark Souls clone. But unfortunately, one thing that it should have cloned from Dark Souls or from Elden Ring is the ability to gain levels to gain experience and not being unnecessarily limited on the inventory. In Dark Souls and in Elden Ring, you basically have a limitless inventory. And in this game, you don't. And in this game, you also are not able to gain experience or levels. Those two things, in my opinion, are the reason why I cannot recommend this game. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. The game is available or will be available in a day or so of me recording this video, and it will also be available on Steam for $40, or it will also be available on Xbox Game Pass or PC Game Pass. So yeah, check it out if you want. I will leave a link to the Steam page in the description below, and thanks a lot to the developers for sending me a key. I have had fun playing the game for the past week or so, but I am afraid that players who are not as experienced, perhaps, with these types of games will hit a brick wall when it comes to some of the bosses, and they will simply not be able to progress due to them not being able to get any more power. And a lot of negative reviews, I feel, will come from that, will come from people who are simply not able to progress in the game. So yeah. As always, if you appreciate my reviews, if you find my reviews informative, hopefully you don't find them entertaining, because that's not the point. I just want to give you guys some consumer advice at the end of the day. And if you at least got some consumer advice and some helpful information from my reviews, then it would be very much appreciated if you could support me on patreon.com/LFP. I use the money that I get from my Patreon supporters to purchase more games and do more reviews for you guys. So you guys directly allow me to purchase more games and do more reviews for you guys. It's not every day that a developer sends me a $40 key. So in those instances, I very much rely on you guys and your support, and it is very much appreciated. So yeah, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time.